everyone. Welcome to Unlock Impact's monthly online panel discussion. My name is Aditi Seshadri. I am co-founder and partner at Unlock Impact, and I'm joined by my co-founder and partner Priya Tachri. And we have two great panelists on board today to talk about a topic that I think is very close to a lot of us. But before that, let me just say, if you're joining us for the first time, Unlock Impact is a consulting firm, and we work in the social impact consulting and advisory space. As part of our work, what we do is we also try to build awareness around, sort of critical issues that are, relevant to all kinds of people and communities in the social impact space, and even actually the larger space. And one of the ways in which we do this is through our panel discussion that we host every month. We do it online and we share it online, and we what that helps us do is that we get people from literally all over the world sometimes to talk about some of the issues that that we need to deal with today. And I'd like our panelists to maybe give us a bit of introduction. We can start maybe with Rahul, and then we can move on to Judge. If you could just tell us a bit about yourselves and the organizations that you work for and the work that you do, and we can take it from there. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today.
Great. Thanks a lot, Aarti, for the introduction. So my name is Rahul Balakrishnan. I am one of the founding members of Arthan Careers. We basically work in the social impact sector to support social impact organizations with any kind of human capital support. And human capital support, when I define it, it means helping organizations hire for the right talent, also help organization to retain talent, as well as supporting organizations with end-to-end HR advisory services, which means creating policies, setting up structures, KPIs, how do I match skills to KPIs, how do I unlock the potential of every human being that works with me on role or off role, etc. So why do I do this? I think having worked in the social impact sector over the past 5 years, after a very different career, I was with the banking and insurance sector for a good 6 years post my MBA. And I realized that this sector really values human beings. And I think, obviously as we meet investors, as we meet impact funds, we always speak about the word scale, and how can we use or leverage technology to solve for problems. And we have come to this realization that we have lost the human touch to everything that we are doing, and slowly we are getting to a place where we are losing focus. And I think social impact sector needs to stay as close to the human touch as possible, because to challenge and to even solve these large scale problems that exist across the world, it's human beings which are going to solve it. So I think Arthan exists to help organizations realize the value of human potential. Yeah. That's it from me. So Judge, over to you.
Hi, my name is Judge Kalimbahin. I am the Chief of Strategy at Edukasyon.ph, and we are a youth platform here in the Philippines. And basically our objective is to help students aged 13 to 24 navigate their education to career paths, which, we've all been there. We all know that it's a difficult time to be in at that age, especially as you have all of these options and all these opportunities that are available to you. So our objective is to be able to do this through an online platform that would be able to connect the ecosystem together, students, schools, and different corporations, giving students the opportunity to then interact with people within this ecosystem. For example, giving students a chance to apply for scholarships, or giving them the chance to apply to different schools, which they can't necessarily do with the manual processes that are existing here in the Philippines. Thus far, we reach over 10 million students here in the Philippines, and cater to over 500 schools nationwide and abroad. We also do work with around 50 corporations here in the Philippines. As for me and why I'm at Edukasyon, basically I came from a background of consulting. Of course, coming from that background, wanting to apply what I've learned to a more socially driven company, hence Edukasyon. And really the purpose of me being in the education space is with the realization that education really is a root of a lot of social issues. So if you can tackle the problem there, you then be able to scale your impact a little bit further, and be able to solve some problems, some issues again down the line. So for me, it really is just understanding that education is where it starts, and if you can make an impact there, you can then make an impact to the next generation. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Great, thank you so much for that. And yeah, and it's exciting to hear what has motivated you to start this journey. So I'm sure we'll chat more about that in a little bit. But Judge, let me come back to you. I think you touched upon and you said that education is really where it starts, and that's what we got to solve. So could you give us a sense of what are some of the biggest challenges that you're seeing in the Philippines? Because everybody is talking about that as the fastest growing market, huge demographic dividend, but there is still you're still seeing a lot of talent leave the country for better job opportunities. That is continuing to happen, while in the country there's a huge skills gap. So can you give us a sense of what is still driving that, despite being economy that's growing? And in the news, that's all we're hearing, right? That it's really the fastest growing economy. So there's should be huge potential here for jobs.
Sure. So really the problem we're trying to solve, and Priya mentioned it a while ago, it's really the job skills mismatch, which is, despite our growing economy, is a crisis in the Philippines. And really there are three layers that we think about when we think about this problem. The first one is from the level of schools and the current education system. While, of course, our formal education system has been able to produce graduates that are fit for the labor market, one thing that we've realized is that the current formal education system in the Philippines needs to be supplemented by a lot of other things in order for students to actually be prepared for the jobs when they take their first job. Skills such as project management, time management, that no one necessarily teaches students when they're in school. And aside from that, there are also some very specialized topics, very specialized courses that aren't necessarily available in schools yet, that the market already demands. For example, there's huge demand now for cloud computing, cloud engineering, which only a limited number of schools have been able to offer. So there's definitely a gap from that sense. But there are also some factors with employers, on the other hand, to then be able to provide and give schools information on what skills they would need students to learn. And then finally, on the students and consumer side, them realizing that the formal education system is one avenue, but it's not the only avenue. So for us, there are really gaps within the ecosystem that has been driving a lot of the issues with the job skills mismatch. And we believe that technology is such a powerful tool to just bridge people together and to bridge the ecosystem together. Just the fact that just bridging together would already solve a lot of these issues, right? Helping students understand what opportunities are available, helping companies find students that are actually fit to the skills they want, and of course, helping schools realize what new topics they need to include in their curriculum.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Rahul, maybe a little bit of a different perspective in India. For years we've been talking about the demographic dividend, and the government has also invested a lot in addressing the skills gap. But we continue to see that grow, and now with the economy slowing, this skills issue is going to become even more of a crisis. So from your perspective, when you are talking to young people, when you're seeing the youth and you're looking at employers, what is the scenario in India right now?
So I think in India, it's very similar to what Judge also mentioned, right? So we are at a cusp of where we hear this a lot, how India has the youngest population in the world. We have the youngest population when you talk about the 20 to 35-year-old age group. And India has a tremendous amount of potential when you think about it, because the kids who are right now in school are the ones who will be ruling the roost in some way, because most of the economies that we are competing with in terms of China or US, they are comparatively older. And but the real challenge is how do we think about the 21st century skills and how are we imparting it in schools? And right now, we are still grappling with issues around the Right to Education Act. We have children who are entering the classrooms, but they are not staying there. We have a huge dropout post grade 8, this is a critical time where kids have to make that choice. Will they study science? Will they study commerce? Will they study arts? But right at that stage, they are not able to make that informed choice. So either they give up or they end up taking a wrong choice, because we have this. There are a lot of courses, especially when in the social impact space, where we have liberal arts coming into our country. We have masters in social work, but unfortunately, I think a lot of kids who are taking up these courses have no progression of where life will take them. These choices are not made strategically, where kids are able to say, okay, I will choose this subject because I'm really good at it, plus I'm passionate about a career which can take me through this subject. So kids are still fearing maths, but they don't realize that if you need a career in photography, you may not necessarily need to study maths. So these are some of the choices that kids have to make. They are not able to make it well. Secondly, lack of mentors. I think we end up speaking about each other a lot in these debates and conversations. When we are sitting and having dinner at a party, we kind of mirror ourselves when we think about India or think about the globe. But we forget that we are just 10% of the population. At Teach for India, when I used to go to visit colleges and visit corporates, I used to talk about we are just 9% of the population which will get a master's degree. We are talking about the 91% who will not even get to a master's degree. And then we are not even getting deeper into it, because when we realize this 9% would also have challenges, there would be a humongous amount of percentage of people who would have taken a choice not because of what they are passionate about, but maybe because their parents were doctors. Okay, let me become a doctor. Or because the peers chose a certain subject area, let me take it up. So I think that is something which we are trying to grapple with even now. We are still at a very base level of a problem that we have defined. We are still grappling around facilities in a school. Are teachers empowered enough? Are principals empowered enough? We are still not gone beyond. We are still not able to say, okay, the curriculum that we are teaching in classrooms are still outdated. And we are not able to incorporate 21st century skills in our curriculum. And you don't necessarily need a book or a different subject area to teach it. It's about how can I integrate all of this in my curriculum. So when I'm teaching science, can I teach leadership or critical thinking while I'm doing science? You don't have to learn critical thinking in a subject of critical thinking. So I think there's a variety of issues that we are facing, and I think that's slowly trickling down in our job market as well. And slowly, and obviously we are working in the social impact space, but that isn't any different from a corporate space. I think the skills that are required to ace any job, even in the impact space, you're talking about leadership, ability to work in chaotic situations, or ability to work in a non-structured environment. How comfortable are you when you don't know, when you step into office, this is what I need to do. And thirdly, ability to manage issues which are beyond your locus of control. And I think if you think about these three skills and think about our own childhood, were we prepared for it on a daily basis? Not really. I think we had some things going well for us. Maybe it was our parents, maybe it was our peer group, maybe it was the infrastructure or the money, because I was lucky to have been born in a certain household. But if you think about it, it's not available for all. So there's a problem of equity, problem of lack of resources, or maybe problem of looking at a problem very differently. So I think the combinations of it is hurting our economy together.
Thanks, Rahul. I think, it's interesting what you're saying. I think sometimes this happens with a lot of things in India. And I'm sure from whatever I've heard about the Philippines, it is, it resonates there as well. Is that like it almost feels premature to be talking about future of work and future jobs when we have some very basic things that are not fixed, right? So then what do you do? Like, having said that, like yeah, you're right. Like we're still talking about RTE, but then are we, how are we preparing youth and students for jobs of the future? So I just want to understand a bit, like, for example, how do you guys go about it? Or, do you know of other initiatives that are working on this? And also, like, you did mention a couple of these 21st century skills, but really, what does that look like for, for this group of people, the 91% that you're talking about? Not even the 9%, but even the 91%, what would that look like? If you could just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I think obviously government has started a lot of initiatives in the livelihood space. There are more and more businesses which are focused on getting more jobs, especially in the tier 3, tier 4 cities of our country. Because I think solving for jobs in the rural side of the country will also ensure less migration into cities, because I don't think as a country we are also prepared for a higher population in the urban side of the country. I think we should kick out that notion that great jobs are only available in the urban side of the country. So I think government has got that right in some way, because initiatives like Startup India, etc., are focused on how can we support younger entrepreneurs in the agri space, agriculture space, livelihood space, and even supporting small businesses, because those are the businesses which will hire and employ more people. And I think more organizations that we are working with are also very open to hiring people who are maybe less skilled, but they are open for contractual agreements and even getting more people as interns. And I think what we are also finding youth, especially from marginalized backgrounds, thinking about is they are also leveraging technology a lot. I think organizations like free courses are coming up on websites. Websites like Internshala, Coursera, etc., are also targeting youth to pick up small scale courses to maybe upskill them. So, and there are variety of industrialists or who are also joining hands with organizations such as this. So if you think about it, organizations like Harappa Education is coming up, which is focusing on skills that are required at workplace. So there are organizations which are catering to certain niche skills. And I think it's happening because, first of all, people are talking about this problem, but at the same time, we are encouraging more and more people to come and solve for this problem. So I think that combination is kind of working, but it's still not at that scale with which the problem that is visible right now. But we are heading in a right direction.
Absolutely. I think, this discussion around 21st century skills, and I think, Rahul, you addressed it to say, are some of these even the softer skills, right? Not just, your engineering or how to code, but, how to actually engage with your team, how to actually communicate, how to, become a leader within your team or your organization. These are things that are not being taught. And that is another battle on its own of how does, curriculum keep up. But, Judge, we've had a lot of discussion around, what does skilling mean? And that I know is a new focus for Education. So, how are you addressing, and as a tech platform, I think, you have the ability to kind of reach far more people. So how are you thinking about it at all? Or, is it how do we go about allowing or enabling young people to empower themselves with these skills if it's not being taught in the classroom? Because they can't succeed in the workplace without that.
Yes. So, well, I guess our situation is pretty much similar to what Rahul explained. For India, I think for us, what's been a shining beacon actually has been the interest from other forms of is the interest for education and other forms in other forms. For example, we see the corporate sector, the private sector, then taking a step up and then offering their own types of learning modules specific to the kinds of skills that they would need for the workplace. And they're doing it right now. They're doing it right now in the Philippines. For example, I know Amazon, AWS is launching a series of. They have education. They have AWS Educate, which basically teaches cloud computing skills to students for free, right? And there's so many more corporations that are doing this at their level. And at the same time, there are foundations that offer all these that offer training modules for both hard skills and soft skills. There are startups that are doing the same. And how we're thinking about the Edukasyon is that perhaps the gap is, well, for one, the discoverability of all these opportunities, because it's very easy to get trapped in the thinking that, okay, as long as I get my degree, I'm good. I'll think about my job some other time. But actually, even as early as high school, or when you're even in school, you should start thinking about all these things that should supplement the skills that you would need. To Raul's point earlier, they need to be a little bit deliberate about what kind of education they need to achieve the career that they want. And for us, we actually see a lot of opportunities all over the country to provide the sort of education for students. The thing that's missing, I think, now, and how we're thinking about it and how we want to solve it, is the discoverability of these opportunities and helping students then navigate through the options that are available. Because, of course, one layer is helping them find these opportunities, and another layer is helping them then choose between them. Because they could always go the route of just watching a series of YouTube videos or taking random Coursera courses, but they will never be directed towards the kind of skills that they would need for a career that they would want. And of course, some of these would be in the layer of just hard skills, where they take an online course, or could even be soft skills, where they take an internship, or where they take a direct training program that would then help them develop the leadership skills that they would need for the workplace. But for us, the key is finding the opportunities, giving them the direction of which opportunities to choose for their path, and of course, giving them the ability to then connect to these providers, because they're everywhere. It's not the gap isn't for lack of trying, if I may say.
So, Judge, I'm staying with you just because one of the things, of course, is basically scalability, right? And tech is obviously the game changer. Your business model, your model is built on that. And obviously we know why, but I'm just wondering where there are probably still places where you're hitting a wall, and there are still some challenges in, even if you're using tech for the scalability of all of it. So, could you talk to us a bit about that?
Sure. Well, I think the challenges really comes from utilizing tech as the thing that would get us to scale. And of course, we're facing the same challenges that any tech startup in the Philippines is facing. For one, just how we can scale if people can't even access the internet. So of course, that's one challenge that we're trying to address through offline activities and actually physically reaching out to students as we wait for our telco to keep up to global standards. And the second really is digital openness to digital solutions. While the kids that we're catering to, they're young, they're the internet generation, they are open to these kinds of opportunities. What we are facing is then engaging with all the other providers which aren't as digitally mature yet, how to get them to first trust the amount of learning that they can give out through tech, and them actually utilizing tech as a platform for them to reach out to more students. At least here in the Philippines, it's not as There are some partners that are more digitally mature than others, but of course there is an element of education that we also need to do to get them to trust, the platform, get them to trust utilizing tech itself to share educational content and making them see that it can also achieve the same learning outcomes that they want to achieve in a classroom. Because really, there are some studies being done on the effectiveness of online education, and we believe that apart from scale, it is also an effective measure. So definitely for us, tech really is the great equalizer of sorts. It will provide opportunities for students to gain access to all of these educational opportunities, even if they're in an island very, very far away. As long as they get internet connection, they should have access to these opportunities.
So it's interesting because one of the things in India, for example, internet reach is it's widely spread through mobile. Like Priya's heart bleeds sometimes when I talk about how cheap data has become in India. I pay, it's I pay $7 for 3 months or something like that. So it's ridiculously cheap. So what this has meant is that therefore there is a lot of reach and access, and there is a lot of content going out. But so, Rahul, what is your take on this? Because we know that is not so much of a challenge anymore, but, what is around maybe say adaptability, or some of the things that Judge was talking about in terms of attitudes, whether people are open to this kind of thing? Is it different? Is it similar? What do you think?
I think internet has surely helped. I think even with our own platform, we are seeing unknown organizations in the remotest part of the country using our platform to hire talent. That has happened. I don't think it would have happened 4-5 years back. I think because of internet, because of the wider reach, the bridge which used to be far-fetched between job seekers and providers is slowly coming closer, because it's much more easier to connect with people, and also meet a lot of people. And I think with internet reach going wider, people are accessing platforms such as LinkedIn, etc., to connect with the right people. And I think slowly organizations are pretty open to even engage with talent without a job or going beyond transactional stuff. I think we are valuing thought leadership a lot as a country. I think there are more and more influencers coming into the picture who want to play a role in supporting ecosystems such as this. Even what we are trying to do is because of technology and internet, right? What we are currently doing on Zoom. And you spoke in your introduction how your videos we are able to access more and more people. So I think that is slowly becoming a benefit, and it is helping more and more people access it. I think the speed of internet is very fast these days. Even government school teachers, etc., are using internet to teach in the classroom. And the competition is also increasing because of this reach. There are more edtech organizations trying to solve these problems on a large scale. So obviously that additional unit of increase in internet has enabled more and more people to drive this ecosystem of education, and it's very clear, right, how health and education are one of the top most invested sectors within the Indian ecosystem. But like I said, the how bit and what to do is something we are still figuring out. I still feel that internet has also enabled people to reach out to the end user very quickly, but we still haven't figured out how and what to do with that. So even if a job seeker today has access to a CEO of an organization today, so easy that you can literally go on LinkedIn and click connect. But what do we do when you connect with that person? How do we engage in a conversation which is meaningful? How would you raise that highbrow of that CEO to look your profile up and maybe engage in a conversation? And that's a very hard skill, and Judge would agree. And that's like a 2-second chance that you get, it's like a elevator pitch. you either make it or break it. So, and that's a skill that we as educators have to instill in children right from the start. And that's also a combination of many other skills. But like I said, it's a benefit, and I think there are more and more players coming into the ecosystem which will enable this.
Fantastic. Internet connectivity is my pet peeve, so I can go on about it. I mean, I would love it if, a student in a super rural place could log on to education.ph and, be able to apply without thinking twice about connection issues. And I hope that they will come sooner than later. But I'd love to change gears a little bit and talk about, another aspect of future of work that seems to dominate a lot of the discussion. So I'm so happy that we touched on a lot of other issues, but it's really the whole piece around AI and digitization that potentially will leave a lot of people behind. And this is a fear that has kind of risen more and more. I think it's becoming bigger, but I still feel that we're quite far away from that kind of a mass replacement of jobs. But maybe, Judge, I'll kind of jump to you first. Is that something that an economy like the Philippines is even thinking about, given where you are today? And how do we, as as a young population, how does one ever ready for a future where the job market might look very, very different?
Yeah, honestly, for me, from my for my very subjective view, I don't think that there is a huge risk, at least in the near future, for replacement of jobs due to AI or digitization, at least in the Philippines, for the next coming years. But it is coming at some point, and we already need to prepare the youth of today to be ready when the situation comes, be it in 5 or 10 or 15 years, because at some point it is going to reach them, be it when they're at 40 and they're at on mid-manager level, or as early as tomorrow. So I think really we touched upon it a little bit earlier, but I think now the shift in education is being able to prepare students for the dynamism of the workplace and basically teaching them how to learn. Because from what we've observed in the workplace, it's the skills that they would need. Some of the things that they need now aren't what schools have been teaching them when they were in college, right? And this fast-paced amount of skills that they would need to, the amount of skills they need to learn is getting a little bit faster than what the formal education system can provide, or even with online learning, right? So I think the best way to then prepare them for the future is then giving the skills and opportunities to learn when the situation does arise. So this means giving a little bit more focus on the soft skills, giving them confidence to go to the office even if they're uncertain, being able to map out a project plan themselves even if they have limited information on the topic itself, and of course giving them the opportunity to then learn the hard skills they would need when they're in the moment, which is for us why it's very important to then start connecting them to all of these opportunities outside of school now, because in the future, even when they're in the workplace, they're going to need online education. They're going to need access to all of these foundations and corporations that are providing training, just because when they were in school, it wasn't available. So for us, that's how we're thinking about it. Just preparing the youth now to this kind of dynamism in the future. And the youth is ready. From what we've observed about Gen Z, age 13, 24, they're very eager to learn multiple things and to keep engaged, especially if it's online. So really for us, it's about then bridging the gap to all the opportunities that are out there, because they would reach out to these opportunities if they know where they are.
Absolutely. And just maybe, just touching on what you said, the Gen Z, they are thinking about a lot of things differently, so this whole new approach that we have of, I think both of you kind of really touched on pursuing, your passion, identifying and preparing yourself to pursue what you're interested in, or where maybe you think you're really good at. which also kind of brings us to kind of the new kind of format of what work is really changing into, right? I mean, it's what Aditi and I do, virtually working. We really are a virtual organization because we're both in different countries. But I think increasingly we're seeing that as that is going to be a part of that future of work as well. And are you seeing that, the Gen Z is interested, or that would be a natural fit for them, the whole gig economy, doing multiple things, because interest does change, and I think we are living in a world where you can pursue multiple things if that's what you choose to do.
Yes, and I guess based on how we understand our Gen Z audience, at least in the Philippines, really the concept of a multi-hyphenate person is getting a bit more attractive for the youth, right? Because more and more people, the youth are starting to feel like they shouldn't be trapped in a particular career, and they want to explore all these different options. So I think where we're leading towards, the gig economy, or even just trying out different things through online, the youth is very, very much prepared for that, especially since especially with the younger generation now, they are digitally savvy, they are the digital generation, which means that if work does arrive there and they are then asked to work online, it's not anything different from what they grew up in. So I would say that they are in a much more better position than, I guess, for example, for me, who of course grew up without technology at some point, right? So that being their lives early on, they are in a better position to be adaptable to that future.
Yeah, it requires a lot of discipline, which I sometimes lack. So I understand that adapting to, that type of work, which I think young people today are very much suited to. And Aditi, I don't know if you had a question, but I just want to quickly follow up with Rahul as well. You're placing people in jobs, and are people looking for regular work? Are they looking to work full time? What are some of the trends that you're seeing, even in the impact space?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to that by saying, so one is, of course, what are job seekers looking for, and how also are organizations and employers adapting to this? Are they starting to kind of approach all of this differently in terms of hiring and people they're looking for? Just because you actually have both viewpoints.
Yeah, I think we are seeing that the younger generation has to be kept motivated a lot in any job. I think that's a struggle which many organizations are facing, because they realize that the talent which is coming in, which is younger, are hyper in terms of excitement, enthusiasm, but it also takes just a flicker for it to die. So how do we keep them motivated? So I think organizations are constantly thinking about their talent regularly. Those who are not are burning their hands, because talent also moves on very quickly if they don't see that excitement which they can leverage daily. But I think that's also something which we as an organization, which is an intermediary here, tries to play that card of stability. Learning cannot happen in a short duration of time. We usually tell the younger folks that the first year in any job is about learning. It's the second and the third year that you really think about growth and impact. And especially in the sector that we are looking to work in, it's not easy to find solutions right away, because had there been solutions, we wouldn't be working on these problems. I think that's where the younger generation needs to be more patient and needs to understand that the stakeholders and the people that we are dealing with are hard enough. You will not be able to solve a problem which might even take years post my lifetime. And maybe even then we may not be anywhere close to solving them. So I think it's a role that we end up playing between organizations and job seekers. Even we are pushing organizations to bring in more flexibility in their overall work. I think we are looking at more generalists getting hired rather than specialists. And I think that's also begs a discussion which Judge also spoke about. Multitude of skills, having an understanding of multi levels of work will be important as we are heading into this AI driven world. People will look for more specialists as organizations, because I would want someone who can, if a project in consulting ends, but I want someone who can play a digital marketing card, I would rather have this person do it rather than hire for a new person. But that's a combination which job seekers also need to adapt, because it's going to be harder. But I think AI cannot replace culture fit. I still would want to know who is the person sitting right in front of me on a daily basis before I choose a job. And I think more and more situations occur where organization is great, the work is great, but the people around me aren't great. And I don't know how technology can ever solve for that. So I think there will be some aspects of human beings being more important than technology. And so it's even more critical for people to think about those jobs and think about those areas where I can step into. And I have realized that when I speak to job seekers, and I'm talking from a very personal story here, when I speak to job seekers, give them tips before they head to an interview, you then realize these tips already are available on the website. If you go on Google and write tips for a data analyst interview, you have these 10 things. But when I tell someone this physically, they are able to register it faster. So there is always a way out for human beings over technology. And I don't know, human beings are more susceptible to learn faster when there's a human being telling them. We have always had these debates, even when I was a Teach for India fellow. Can an app or a software replace a teacher? We constantly talk about, even in football and cricket these days, do we need a referee if we have a third umpire? Really? But then you realize when there are fights which break out on the pitch, when there are arguments, you need someone to mitigate it. You always need a human being everywhere. But like I said, it's a double-edged sword. People at the job seekers end need to understand there will be dynamism, there will be changes. And there are unicorns who can afford a lot of people and pay them salaries, but they are also culling out people. Because within a supply chain, a Zomato can see, okay, one code, if I add it in my app, I can reduce 10,000 jobs. And that's a risk which is always going to be existing. So one needs to be prepared for that. But I think as organizations, we also need to be responsible, but at the same time, we also need to create flexibility. I think organizations are pretty much open with maternity benefits. They are open to hiring women who are coming to jobs post a break. I have seen women who are also preparing themselves for that. Where I recently met a lawyer who has been taking digital marketing courses because she feels being a lawyer and being in litigation may not be, because she's pregnant and she might have kids. Maybe litigation is not the career she's looking for. So she's writing blogs on laws and then even building her skills on SEO, etc. Maybe she wants to become an influencer in the legal aspect of her work. So one needs to be very flexible. One needs to look at the future constantly. It's so easy to get absorbed in the present. One needs to constantly be on the lookout of how the world is changing. So I think it's a thing that is something which both organizations as well as job seekers need to constantly look at.
Absolutely, I think that's a great point, and I think we are at this given point of time. You know, the kind of examples that you shared, you can do that. You can upskill yourself. as Judge was referring to earlier, you can go online, and if you are able to find the right opportunities, then you can upskill yourself and then find different opportunities to, fulfill your potential and, choose kind of the path that you really want to as an individual. So thank you so much for sharing that. I know we're kind of running out of time, but there was one last thing that I really wanted to touch on. And again, maybe I'll jump back to you, Judge. Education and skilling requires really like a village to solve this. And it's really, and there are multiple stakeholders in this. There's government, there's education institutions, there are startups, there are, the employers, and everybody is a part of the solution. And that is a very complicated problem to solve when, we need all of the different players to play that role and maybe play multiple roles. So Judge, I just want to come to you for a second. I think you mentioned how education is really bringing together these different stakeholders. So how do you work with the different players in the ecosystem? And maybe you can share a couple of partnerships that you have, whether it's with, corporates as employers or with the government, to address the problems that you're seeing.
Yeah, sure. And yes, I completely agree with that. It takes it's not, you can't solve the problem with the education gap by just focusing on one player. You really need to involve everyone else, from students, even the parents who influence a lot of students' decisions, to schools and corporations. So for us, how we're approaching it is essentially, it's different depending on the partner and what would incentivize them to be part of a tech platform. So, for example, for students, they are of course interested in inquiring and applying to schools that are available for them, or even for different scholarship opportunities. So it's really incentivizing them to register because of that. For schools, they look at it from the marketing angle, where they would want to market their school for students, and of course increase seats for their school. So for us, it's about working with them from that lens. And then finally, for corporations, it's of course there's a marketing angle to it. They want to talk about their corporation as a company, that their company is a place that students can perhaps want to work at in the future, and then early on already build that level of trust for these students to be able to do so. So that's how we're incentivizing them. So really, it's about finding the tick that would allow them to be part of a platform such as ours. But I think one of the things that we found to be really interesting about education is that everyone really wants it. We have never met any partner that has said, no, we don't want to help educate 10 million kids in the Philippines. It's really just about finding what their specific interest is in education. Everyone has one. Parents want their kids to get a good education, get a degree. Students want to know that they want to feel safe for their future. Schools want seats on their school, and of course corporations want either future consumers or even future employees. So for us, it's building an ecosystem, building a platform that allows all of them to find what they need, but at the same time work together for the same goal, which is ultimately getting students placed in jobs.
Absolutely. Rahul, on your platform, of course, you're primarily connecting job seekers to employers, but are there other partnerships that you have built, as part of this ecosystem?
So we are looking at different partnerships. We are working with impact funds. We are working with investors in the social space because we realize that there is a clear benefit for them to work with us, because the organizations will only scale and do well and give them that ROI if they are great people working for them. But at the same time, you want entrepreneurs who are really passionate for the cause they are trying to solve, but may not be skilled enough to run an organization of 500 people. So we play that role of supporting organizations in setting up those processes. So we are working with many impact funds and social impact investors very closely. At the same time, we are also working with institutions, colleges, especially the relevant courses which have a parallel with the social impact space. So Masters in Public Policy courses, students who are passing out on a yearly basis. Both India and abroad, there are so many Indians who come back to India because of laws and regulations which don't allow them to stay back in the US. But there are different levels of problems. These are those motivated individuals who have decided that social impact space is the career that they want to embark on. But when they go and spend a hefty amount of money and they come back to India and then they realize jobs are not in tandem with their education loans. And it's a big problem because they have sacrificed, they have fought with families to take up a career here. And now they are back to square one because when they get back home, the parents tell them, I told you so. You could have done an MBA. You could have stayed back in the corporate sector. Now you have burnt money. And then we have realized there are always jobs for strong, talented people. And usually it goes beyond your typical careers page on a website. I think it's about ideal matchmaking, which is personality match between a job seeker and the organization. And we kind of enabled that. So we have helped students through partnerships, especially from these education institutions. We are also working and building such forums which can enable interaction and between job seekers and providers. So we are having a human capital summit, Arthan Summit, on December 19th in Delhi. We are partnered with University of Chicago and Amani Institute, where we do these 4 conferences in a year. We call it Demystifying Social Impact Careers. And these are open forums where people can register and come in. And we engage both job seekers and job providers through these forums, wherein they can share spaces, they can ask questions. And some of the panels that we have is you can earn money working in the social impact space, or how do we strategically make a transition from corporate to social sector. Because we want to be enablers, we want to be thought leaders here. We don't want to keep anything hidden, which is more like our copyright. Okay, we'll not share it with the wide world. I think these forums have enabled us to get more and more people be interested about this space. I think if there is no social impact sector in 20 years, 30 years, I think we would have solved all the problems in our country. That's how I look at it. I don't think Arthan should exist in 30, 35 years because there's no social impact sector, because every sector is social impact sector. I think we are having that debate constantly that if you are a non-social sector organization, you might become anti-social. I think every organization has a responsibility today to be a part of this. And I know there are CSR laws, etc. And everyone wants to work in the sector. I haven't found anyone who I've met over the past 5 years who isn't passionate about the sector itself. And I think we want to be enablers so that more and more talent make that transition into the sector. But at the same time, we really need to push organizations too, right? Because if they are very strict and stringent, okay, I want only people who have worked in the impact space. But then that's not inclusivity. Then we are doing what a corporate sector organization would do, right? Oh, I would only hire MBAs. I will not hire masters in social work. And I think it's an ongoing debate. And because we are right in the middle, we have enabled a lot of talent making that move. And we have also enabled a lot of people find the right job without maybe even taking a pay cut, because we have been able to identify people that it's not the SMS that you receive at the end of the month that keeps you motivated in a job. It's about the job itself. And if you are able to match that on a daily basis, you are able to make a social impact, at least in your own life to begin with. And that translates into your work. And I think that's what we are trying to do. We are open to any partnerships, to be honest, wherein we are able to enable talent to move into the sector, or we are able to help organizations in the sector streamline processes which can enable talent to do well.
Absolutely.
I could see this whole panel of people like nodding heads very vigorously when you were talking
Yeah.
about, what it means to be in the sector to become more inclusive, the fact that everything should be social. Priya and I were especially nodding when you were like talking about like how, having been in the social impact space for at least 10 years each, the kind of sort of stereotypes and all the things that you have to kind of, handle from people. We've definitely experienced all of that. And I think, the fact that there's people like you and Judge, I think that's one of the reasons why we do this as well, right? Because we also want to show that there are people, and we've discovered this in the process of doing this as well, that there's a lot of inspiring people out there and great role models as well. So that I think is, that's going to happen as well. So Rahul and Judge, just, why do you do what you do? What keeps you motivated? I think we're all, Priya and I are like, we've started this company. All of you are like, you're pretty early stage, you started companies. We get it. We know how tough it is in those initial kind of things. Sometimes it's really like, it's just so much easier to do a job. Like, why am I doing this? So just, what are your thoughts around that? Just to give hope to all of these people out there as well, that there is
Judges come from like months of fundraising, so I think like I'm surprised he's just not like falling off the chair exhausted. But it takes a lot to continue to do what you do, so we'd love to hear you. Yeah, Rahul, you want to?
Can I go first, Judge? Okay. So I think there are a variety of things that have enabled me to come into this sector. So I was a typical MBA right after school, did college, sat for all the exams that are there for getting into a B school, which a typical 90s kid would have done. And I'm assuming Priya and Aditi would agree to how Indian society works. Cracked a couple of exams, went to a grade B school, did my MBA, sat for the placements and took up a very challenging role. What else? And while watching news in India, especially at a prime time, you realize there are a lot of debates which happen in the living room, where you have these news anchors who are shouting at everyone in the channel and on TV, where everyone is pointing fingers. And I constantly started thinking then, what the hell am I doing? What is my contribution to this? Am I even contributing to the country in any way? And I think that's when I met a couple of people from Teach for India, and I embarked on this journey wherein I taught children in a classroom. And I think that overall journey helped me transform myself. I think working in the social entrepreneurship space is about handling challenges where there are no clear answers. And I think I have always been attracted to challenges like that right after my college. Obviously, it took me a good decade's time to define it. And I think it's all about taking responsibility for the problems that exist around us. And I think leadership comes from a Latin word called lieth. And when early men, etc., sat and were designing the English language, you should Google it up. I think lieth talks about going ahead and killing yourself. That's what lieth means. And if leadership comes from that word, I think we have forgotten what leadership is. I think leadership is about taking responsibility, and while taking that responsibility, even if you end up dying, that's what leadership is. And I think we have forgotten that definition in our day-to-day life. We want Mahatma Gandhi to be born in our neighbor's house, but we won't want to become Mahatma Gandhi. And I think we are craving for that leader who will come in and change our country. And unfortunately, because of that, none of us, and we have a huge population, none of us are taking that responsibility. And I think that exactly is what fueled my urge to work in the sector. And I think what I like about Arthan and what we do is I don't grapple with one problem at a time. I think we work with over 100 organizations. So I prefer working for one organization for 1 hour a day. Then it's like changing the uniform and moving into a new office, working for that organization for some time, and then moving into a new problem statement for some time, And I think that's what is exciting in our work. And every day is a new day, and the problems are vast. There are no clear answers. And I think when you are constantly dealing with such levels of problems, you are preparing yourself for life. And I remember attending a leadership coaching session sometime, and I realized that working on social problems is kind of like working on your life.
Yeah, I definitely echo with that. With social problems, then teaching you how to deal with your own personal life. Because really, I mean, compared to school where it's very clear cut, there's a right or wrong answer. I think what's interesting is that in the social impact space, problems are everywhere, and there is no one solution to solve things. And really, that's where the fun part would be, and then finding the solution together with different people. And that's also one motivating factor for me. But mostly, what really drives me is just the knowledge that I am impacting someone in some way, if not directly to the students, be it with coworker or with people within my own personal network. Because I definitely feel for the problem that we're trying to solve. In my first job, I was remarkably unprepared, so I know exactly how they're feeling. I know the sort of fear and uncertainty that kids feel when they're in college, and even midway through their jobs. And for me, just trying. We don't even have to be able to solve the problem directly, but just trying and trying to do something to help reduce this sort of issue for other people. And the knowledge that even the small things that I would do, be it sending an email or um, helping with fundraising, if I know that marginally it would help out and there's value for it, then of course that's what drives me here in Edukasyon. And of course, there's always an aspect of learning for me as well. I think another thing that's interesting in the social impact space is being able to meet people within an organization who are very passionate about education as well. That's one of the um, so one of the things that I found working here for a while is that we tend to attract people who have a vested interest already in education, be it because they're passionate about it or they also want to solve a problem. And being around that set of, of people is actually very inspiring as well, because then it pushes you for your own goals. And then, of course, there's also meeting other entrepreneurs, other people within the social impact ecosystem, at least here in the Philippines, who I've met. It's always interesting to see how different entrepreneurs approach problems within their sphere. Sometimes I find joy in realizing in those aha moments where I start realizing, oh yeah, that actually is a great way to solve this particular issue in your particular industry, be it in farming or somewhere else. So for me, it's all about that level of learning as well that I get from people within the organization, and of course people that I meet um, outside through opportunities such as this, for example. It's very interesting to see new perspectives all aligned with the same goal, which is ultimately to help children get an education, ultimately to help people have better lives. And it's a combination of all of that, that then drives me to do what I do. Yeah, so there. Thank you.
Awesome. Wow, I'm so inspired just listening to both of you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it resonates so much with why Aditi and I decided to come together and start this as well, because we just felt that there are so many incredible people who are all committed to creating an impact in whatever they're doing, and we definitely want to be a part of that movement. And we're so happy to meet so many people through the discussions that we have online, but also in our work, meeting entrepreneurs, meeting investors, meeting other players who are all contributing towards a common goal of kind of building a better world in their own way. And I think if you're not building a social enterprise or creating impact, really, what are you doing, right? I don't think there's I think as both of you touched on, the future really is about solving these problems, and it's solving them together. So every organization should essentially, we should all be social organizations or social businesses. So thank you for so much for sharing your insights and telling us about your personal stories. It's so inspiring to see all of the wonderful people who are working around the world, working towards the same mission.
But just to close out, the reason why we wanted to talk about future of work in this month's panel, as I said, is that we like to talk about sort of current and critical issues. And, this was actually in an article that we had posted on our website as well. But if in the context of India, 9% of the workforce is expected to be deployed in new jobs that do not exist today. And 37% of them will be employed in jobs with radically changed skill sets in just a few years' time. I think this is important to remember, and it's time to kind of start working towards that and preparing for that. And the great thing is, while there are a lot of challenges, what the good news is that we have organizations like Arthan Careers and people like Rahul, and we have organizations like Education and people like Judge who are really working to fix some of these problems, bring all of this together. Priya and I are just enablers, but hopefully this will help to kind of start some of those conversations, and also just get the word out, get people to know more about what's going on. So like every time, we will be back next month with another panel discussion. Thank you so much to our panelists, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks a lot, guys.